This is your candidate for Governor, Rodney Ham, going over this Mothers of Mercy Bill 3.2 that I proposed. It's a revised mandate to current family law, which cost me a lot in my life, especially when I had a psychologist up in Vandalia interview me for uh, a custody family law matter, and then turn around and send a guardian ad litem to the Miami Cemetery to pass judgment on me and another for custody, and I lost, as well as everyone else, really, when you look at it, because there was a complete failure and breakdown in the guidelines provided by Judge Flannery uh, and the magistrate, Brenda Dunlap, uh, as we began to, uh, I guess, not adhere to the guidelines. I seen the entire family drift apart, which was a tragedy, really, in the long run. So what I did was I proposed some different viewpoints from one who was marked twice by family law and not adhering to the policy set forth. And the first one that I think would be a great help or assistance for families that are young and struggling after a divorce would be the ability to have a place to take your children to while you work and feel safe about dropping them off if you don't have the support system that you need. And I think that a great place to start doing that would be in the churches locally, and to add on a little responsibility to the uh, martyrs, if you will, of the community who always want to preach about the moral high road, but usually can only be found on Sundays and Wednesdays at church. So I think we should open up these churches 24/7, have volunteers stay there. We could do it with some of the kids that are out of high school who are not working, some of them working mothers, and use it more as a gathering place for people. And to have a responsible adult there to administer or oversee the process of watching the children, teaching the children, and helping these young struggling parents while they work. I think that it would be something that could be done just because of the tithes that are taken into the church. And you could even offer pay if needed uh, to compensate for people's time and to have a place that's accountable like a church who can oversee your children's development while you are at work. It would be a tremendous help to the expense on family services and the government, I can guarantee you. Um, One thing that we do need to do, though, in these churches with these tithes to better assist us in monitoring for fraud is to have these tithes done through EFT transfers. That way, they are accountable, there's a paper trail, and they're taxed. Um, in my belief system, I think that when you get to be a church that's making over $100,000 a year, I believe it's time for us to tax it. I know that's not popular, but we are the United States of Americans, and if it wasn't for our freedoms and liberty, you wouldn't be able to practice your religion here because we would still be Puritans. So as we move forward with my program called the Mothers of Mercy Bill 3.2, I would like to also create funds from the tithes for research in the medical field, something I believe Jesus would be interested in. I also believe that he would be interested in homeless assistance. I believe that he would be interested in seeking to help people like parents of children who have cancer or vice versa to alleviate some of the medical bills. Because as you can see from my chart of tithes, there is an inordinate amount of money in God's pocket. And I don't know where this money is being applied at. I'm sure it's being applied correctly, but I still believe in the old overseer method, to where that we can make sure that there's not someone out there playing with the funds or misappropriating them in Jesus' eyes. Also, the payroll taxes need to be looked at so that our health care uh, our healthcare payments out of our check uh, should cost less if we're not using the doctor's orders. These blanket costs for insurance premiums have to be addressed because there's a few people in the world who go to the doctor every Tuesday, and then there's people like me who ain't been in 20 years. Uh, And I shouldn't have to pay the same as the person who's abusing it or using it uh, much more than I am. Their premium should be higher than mine. So there should be some kind of bonus program through work, through these insurance companies to assist us in not abusing programs. That leads us into the perpetual pain medicine program. You're not allowed to drive a vehicle if you have a marijuana card. You're not allowed to drive a vehicle if you're on perpetual pain medicine, and you're not allowed to drive a vehicle 30 days after you take your last dose of pain medicine. And that's benzoids included too. So we need to enforce the laws that are on the book to generate even more revenue for the state of Ohio. Now, I've been able to trim in the areas of healthcare, human services. Uh, I've been able to trim as far as adding money into our budget from taxes if we are able to tax the churches, bringing in over $100,000 a year. A chance for us to grow up as Ohioans is going to have to start with less children being born to families who they don't have the ability to parent for whatever reason. So I think that we need to offer IUDs, which is the insert in the arm that prevents pregnancy in females. For people under 25 years old, I would almost look at mandating it because for a female and a male to have a child before they're 25 years old is a tremendous direction change in life. But you take a 25-year-old who's poor, especially if they're female and end up getting the child through the courts, which is usually the case, you are almost damned to human services because there just isn't enough help to help a young, struggling person who doesn't have a support system. And if they're an addict on drugs, it's going to keep repeating because of the lifestyle that they're living. You would change people's lives, and you would also abide by this new abortion law if we did this. And I think it's something that we have to look at as a society, and would hope that people would share my messages about this to stir up or start the conversation on a federal level. With that said, I think that all colleges should offer credits for child care in the general student population for assisting with these churches. You could use some of the nursing program interns. There's a lot of different areas where we could donate time and get college credit back for doing human service type work, like child care, using a church as a platform to provide that for citizens. I also think that while we're at the colleges, we need to take a look at some of the campus ordinances For instance, I don't think that we should have packaged beer on a college campus. I think that we need to reserve those drinking times for pubs, bars, uh, some of the outlying businesses could take advantage of not allowing packaged beer on campus. And the reason for that is it's going to get in the way of the study. These children should not have kegs in their house. They should not have packaged beers in their house. And I would be pretty stern about it if I was a university. Uh, you don't need to have beer. That's not why you're here. I understand the social aspects of it, and you can do that in bars and stuff where they close and they're mandated to close at 1 o'clock, so that you're not drinking at 4 o'clock in the morning. You don't need to be out drinking at 3 o'clock in the morning, because we do end up with students, and I'll even cite a case at the university that I was close to, where a student was jumping up and down on one of the fans on the roof of the building. It collapsed, he fell in, and it cut his leg to a point to where he succumbed to the injury and loss of blood and died, from what I understand. Um, we've also had instances in our universities where kids have lit toilet paper rolls, threw them up the stairs as an alarm clock because they were intoxicated, and ended up burning down that part of the house, and the person succumbed to their injuries and died. Uh, some of the antics that go on at colleges involving alcohol are absurd, and we need to curb it the best way we can. And to do that starts with not allowing packaged beer on the premises. Uh, I know it's difficult to do. I think it's something that needs to be done for the betterment of America, and to help our businesses like our bars and stuff, who would get behind it, I'm sure, because they would gain the sales that they're losing from the introverts, the people who don't want to socialize, who really need to get out and socialize to learn how to be in society and be productive. Um, Mothers and fathers need our assistance. And we need to also make sure that they're maintaining the connection while their children are at college. So parents' weekend and things like that need to be geared more towards, the Dayton, for instance, the Dayton area, which is where I'm from, or Cincinnati. They need to be geared towards things like the art museums, things like aquariums. And those are people who could sponsor us on our parents' weekends to generate business for them and to give us some direction as to how to handle the new influx of all the people there, instead of just having them all, kind of meandering around with the children, and not thinking that we can help assist them to have a better time and make better memories. Um, while I was doing what I did as far as my services to the community, I did notice quite a few things. One of them was uh, I hate to say Duke University situation, but that's what it was. Um, you see it quite a bit on college campuses where the girl's ashamed, and she won't admit what has happened to her. They may admit it to someone who they trust as a parent type of figure. And when you're the officers in charge, or the safety personnel in charge of the university, I think that you need to take a step back and look objectively at it as what it is said to be. I don't think that we need to have an attitude to where that we're concerned about the validity of the argument based on student behavior in general. I think that if a student is accused of rape, that there needs to be court involved, and it doesn't need to be taken care of on a level inside of an institution that may be depending on that bad publicity, getting bottled up and willing to hand out the monetary value that they think they're going to lose to the child or the injured party, to make it look like hush money, so that they don't have any kind of violations or any kind of problems as far as their attendance goes, or their enrollment for the next semester. Um, my program can also be instituted in these colleges. And you could actually help, by giving them credits for citizenship achievements and stuff like that. U.S. for Hope will help raise money not only for Hurricane Ian victims in Florida right now, but it can also help raise money for research for ALS, cancer, Alzheimer's, and many other things. The donations themselves will help us to make medicines less affordable. It gives direction to people who seek help and assistance, and it's an overall good program that will recognize citizenship uh, throughout, um, all the universities, all the high schools, by getting away from the geographical names or even these, I call them the Procter and Gamble advertising program with Heinz Field and Gillette Stadium and all these things that go on. We can sort of gear our stadiums towards our town, and I would love to see them bring it back to Paul Brown Stadium. I believe it was good for Cincinnati to be able to associate things with Paul Brown and to have that identity, just like with Taft Theater, Paul Laurence Dunbar Library. It gives a name and a face that you can have some pride in and take a look at and understand Edwin C. Moses, or you can understand Carl Lewis, or you can understand Muhammad Ali, and some of the great achievements that were made by these people to inspire people who shouldn't probably want to get on here and look a fool in front of some faraway relatives, but who is able to because he wants to show them a little bit about Franklin Delano Roosevelt's influence in his life, or wants to show them about his ancestry and the Jacksons of Tennessee, who would not tolerate anything except for progression, and be able to have some fun with it, and at the same time pique interest. And who knows, by the time we get done with some of the dirt slinging that I'm going to start doing, we may end up having a seat up here in Columbus somewhere. Child care for moms, single mothers with 2-year-olds and up, free from church volunteers and universities. I think that's an awesome idea. Mandatory payroll monitors and home projects like U.S. for Hope, administered by colleges and high schools for credits in secondary education. There's nothing wrong with this. Mandatory elective day, movie for child and parent at church. That means they get to come in and meet all the little friends that their child has met, and they get to see how it runs. Wouldn't you love that? IUD request after 2 children, or you terminate the program. If we're watching 2 children for you, we're not going to continue to do this with you unless you get the IUD. And you can go out here and start paying for child care and stuff, because you're starting to take advantage at this point, especially if you're on social services. Parent classes and electives for students in citizenship credits. Since you're bringing the child in, we want to help you and assist you in teaching you more about your child, from everything from immunizations to the importance of reading, and to how to utilize the public libraries, where to go to get help if you need it, and all the other stuff that goes along with it. We want to get to know you. No, we're not recruiting you to come to our church. We're just giving you our value system and hoping that you put it in your toolbox and apply it to your parenting skills that you already have. It's not part of the deal, but it is mandatory that we do it for you. See? The timeout budget. Church volunteers pick up groceries, throwaways, or perishables for the kitchens in the jails the soup kitchens, and the homeless shelters from places who do throw it away. Um, I know that I had a store in Centerville, and we had a contract with uh, Krispy Kreme donuts, which everybody loves. But the contract said that we had to carry 6 dozen donuts. So we had to order 6 dozen of them for reasons I don't even know. But we had Bill's Donuts across the street and never sold them. So we just threw the donuts away in the garbage every day for a decade. 6 dozen donuts would have fed a lot of people in jail or at a homeless shelter. There's better things, more efficient to do for society than throw them in the dumpster. Um, and Kroger's and Myers and them throw away 50% of their vegetables and things like that. It's somewhere between 40 and 50%. So there's a lot of stuff we can do. We can blend it, we can make salads, we can freeze it. There's all kinds of things that we can do to utilize what they're already throwing away. Uh, and all you have to do is take the moral high ground as a society, especially churches and universities, and have people earn citizenship credits for doing it. Intern programs for teachers to help reading, writing, and citizenship classes, not only at church for the children that we're watching, but in jails. Uh, to go there and learn to teach, especially if you're a teaching assistant or someone who's seeking a teaching degree, to do this as an internship. I think it would be critical to turning people's lives around to educate them so that they don't return to the rinse, cycle, repeat system that we know as the penal system. Parenting classes focused on the law and family services aspects of our society, with jail credits for females who receive the IUDs. I know it's controversial. The IUDs are a very simple procedure, but they're a medical procedure that can only be exchanged by a doctor so you can monitor them to make sure that they're accountable for having it and you're not depending on something else. I think overall it saves the state of Ohio one hell of a lot of money. And I think that it's a great program because we have the medical field involved to make sure that we're doing things the correct way. And it's also a little bit of a practice what you preach to some of these social juggernauts like these churches that are earning $150 million or $1 billion a year or some absurd amount of money to kick in and help the state of Ohio by them being able to teach our children to be just as great as they are and to participate more in the overall aspect of things besides telling our parish or our church who to vote for. I'm going to hit you with these numbers one more time and then I'll end this. I know it's kind of long. All you have to do is take the attendance at church. The average wage is $50,000, 10% is $5,000. So if you got 100 people, it's $5,000 multiplied. That's that's $500,000 per person working attending church. It's a hell of a lot of money, and it has to be either in a bank or into some kind of donation program that they're getting tax credit for, probably, if you looked into it. So it would be easy to track to see where the money goes. The only problem we're having is how much is put into the kiddies. So that's where the EFT transfers would be spectacular for accounting. That's it. I hope to be your governor in the state of Ohio. If not, I hope to teach our kids a few things. I'll attach my sheet, Mother's Mercy, Memorandum 3.2. Let's get that to Columbus and get that installed for these universities so that all of us can be better Buckeyes. I can quit being Chris Stillman and I can develop relationships, even though that I do have some mental issues that I'm trying to work through, and am doing it as the best that I can, and waiting on people to be more aware of what mental illness does to people. Even someone like me who has got some severe issues from all the grief and all the loss that I've endured in a very short period of time. And doing this for for these people in my family has helped me tremendously, and I could never thank them enough. So once more time, ready? I love you.